The Premier League is back after the international break, and for Arsenal, they're back with a bang. Hello, everyone. My name is Mark Donaldson, alongside Janusz Mihalik and Tom Hamilton. Arsenal 3, Nottingham Forest 0. Janusz Mihalik, find me a flaw, please, in that Arsenal performance today.
None. Nothing to find. We've got to call a spade a spade. The sort of game that you absolutely dream of coming back from international duties, because we know the issues you may have after a break like that, injuries and all that stuff. Total control from Arsenal from start to finish. So I think if you Mikel Arteta, you obviously as a manager find something to work on, as always, I suppose. But I mean, this was such an easy game that he'll enjoy that.
Yeah, plenty to talk about, Tom, about Nottingham Forest. That's still to come. Ange Postecoglou, the differences between him and Nuno, how they set up, a lack of press, especially for the second goal just after half-time. But from an Arsenal perspective, last season we spoke about they need a striker. They need a bit more strength and depth. They have a striker now. They have more strength in depth. Was this the perfect day for Mikel Arteta against, albeit, quite limited opponents?
I'd say so. You have to say so, really, apart from the injury to Odegaard. He went off in the first half with what looked to be maybe a shoulder injury from that awkward fall. But look, he didn't even play Declan Rice until the final moments, really. He didn't have to. He rotated. And this is a team without Saka, without Saliba, and then, without Declan Rice through selection, the other two through injury. And they didn't miss a beat. Like, these are the sort of matches last season without this summer overhaul where they would have struggled perhaps to have kept that intensity, to find the strength and depth. But they've got that now. The bench, so strong, the calibre of players they could bring off. I mean, even when Odegaard got injured, they brought on Nwaneri instead of Declan Rice there. So, look, they've got strength and depth. Arteta's clearly enjoying having these options at his disposal. And, it was pretty much the perfect day, bar the Odegaard injury. But we saw how well Eze slotted in, just brilliant. Madueke as well. Gyökeres is a new front three who've never played together, but it looks like they've been playing together all their lives, really. And then Zubimendi, 2 goals from him, the role that he played in controlling the game too in that midfield. Just almost a perfect day at the office, I think, for Arsenal.
Janusz, for those that didn't watch La Liga over the last few years, I'm not sure how excited Arsenal fans would have been by the signing of Zubimendi, but you and I commentate on the league. We've seen him many occasions for Real Sociedad. I remember in a cup semi-final a couple of years ago against Mallorca, they basically put their best player on Zubimendi and said, well, we don't need you, but they need him more than we need you. He's that important. He doesn't score too many from outside the box, though. He only got 2 all last season, and now he's already got 2. What could be the importance of Zubimendi to Arsenal, but also to Declan Rice to potentially allow him a little bit more freedom getting forward?
Well, I'll tell you what, I mean, Zubimendi, obviously a marshal, keeps the rhythm, and you can see that, and that perhaps is the most important thing, right? I mean, if you look at some of the top teams, you always have to, in history, I'm not even talking about that, you always have to have somebody that can give you something on both sides of the ball and really can pull the strings. Up until now, I think we thought of Odegaard as that, and we all know that there are flaws, right? And, obviously, nobody's happy that he's injured, but having Zubimendi and Merino, let's not forget, Odegaard, Zubimendi, and Merino came from Real Sociedad, right? I mean, they've played together, actually. It was a long time ago, but they have. And, if you watch Spain over the last 2 weeks, both Merino and Zubimendi were absolutely outstanding. Mikel Merino, who didn't have a great game today, scored 4 goals against Turkey and I'm forgetting Bulgaria, I believe, was the other game. So I think you got to look deeper. As Tom mentioned, Nwaneri is there as well. So the natural rotation is there, because I don't think it was there in the past, to be quite honest, not to this degree right now. That will be tested, of course. Pretty sure, Bilbao is coming up, and Manchester City in Premier League as well. But I look at Zubimendi as I don't want to say just the missing piece, because the depth and strength of this Arsenal team is for everyone to see. But I think key, and him scoring is great, 2 goals, 2 different goals, and I don't think we're going to see that from Zubimendi game in and game out. But we don't need to, as long as he's the one dictating the tempo and how Arsenal play when they have the ball, when they don't have the ball, when they're under tremendous amount of pressure, where you need somebody like Zubimendi to get you out of the tough spots. I think this is maybe the most important thing we are learning as we go about Arsenal and Zubimendi.
And two excellent additions in wide areas, Tom. On the right-hand side, Madueke, and Eberechi Eze as well. Now, Saka's not far away from being back, along with William Saliba. So is he just a piece of the puzzle that is used, not sparingly, but maybe in one or two different positions, Madueke? And how important could the signing of Eberechi Eze be on the other side?
I think they're both brilliant. Madueke gives Saka real competition. And then also, don't forget Martinelli, who came off the bench as well. So he's someone who a couple of seasons ago would have been an immediate starter for them. But they have this strength and depth now. And Eze can play through the middle like he did for Palace. He can drift around. Madueke can play off both sides. Then you've got Saka, who's by far one of the best wingers in the world. You've also got Trossard in there as well, who has featured a huge amount for Arsenal in the past couple of seasons. So they just have this strength and depth now, and Gabriel Jesus to come back from injury as well. Look, they've got all of these options. So it's a delightful conundrum of a sort of bizarre cocktail for Arteta to sort out here. He has these players. And Madueke today, I thought he was absolutely brilliant. The way he absolutely obliterated the Forest makeshift left-back, Morata, in that first half. He's probably still spinning on the pitch at the Emirates. And then Nico Williams did a bit of a better job on him in the second half. But that in turn gave Eze more freedom. And you could just see the joy which Eze has in creating opportunities, these little flicks. There's one sort of around the 70-minute mark where he flicks, I think, to put Calafiori away. It's just, there's so much creativity there. Now, it's one thing having all of these, though. It's another thing getting the best out of it and then generating trophies. And that's ultimately what Teta's going to be judged on this season. But Gyökeres as well looked really good today. He's quiet in the first half. I thought Forest marshalled him really well, but then he got a bit more freedom in the second half. Could have scored another, but he hit the post. But look, there's so many options there, and it's up to Arteta to juggle this now. But Madueke and Eze are putting real pressure on those who probably thought they had guaranteed places.
Let's just push the brakes a little bit on the Arsenal love-in, because anybody, maybe a Liverpool fan watching this, go, hold on a minute, Arsenal lost against Liverpool. So yeah, this is Forest away, but you couldn't win at Liverpool, Janusz. They have got a big week coming up, away to Athletic Club in Bilbao, and then Manchester City at home. But from an Arsenal perspective, you can only beat what's in front of you. And I'm glad Tom mentioned Gyökeres as well, because he didn't do anything in the first half, hardly had any touches, and then he came alive. What is he going to have to work on with his game, having scored 39 goals at Sporting last season, but now playing in a much better league?
Yeah, I just think, if you look at him, I mean, he's there for one reason only, to score goals. I mean, the way he looks right now, because I'm not going to, look at his goals and at Sporting, because this is a different level. I mean, this is your number 9. This is your finisher. I mean, that's what he does, right? I mean, that tap in today, of course, it's easy, but the whole action was beautiful with Calafiori putting the ball over the top to Eberechi Eze, who was very, very quiet in the first half, and just with one touch. Right, I mean, the way he puts that ball across the 6-yard box, for that tap in is absolutely wonderful. So if you look at Gyökeres, I mean, 3 goals now, and yes, I mean, you can look at the body of work and what he does without the ball. Escapes you a little bit, right? Because you look at the how much money they spend, and sometimes you think that the player is going to give you the whole gamut of skills, and that's not what he's there for. He's there for that, and those chances that come in, the crosses that may come in as the season develops, for him to put it away. Tom's mentioned the how deep they are. We haven't even mentioned Kai Havertz, who obviously can play that position. You have so many different players that now Mikel Arteta can move around if need be, right? So I think Gyökeres has done his job so far. I mean, it's 3 goals, right? And what is it, 4 games right now? So no questions asked about that. As we get along with what Arsenal can or cannot do, and Tom mentioned the trophies. Yeah, I mean that last step is the hardest. Mark, you've mentioned that Liverpool, obviously the champions, but look how long it's taken them to win the Premier League, right? I mean, I'm not talking last year, obviously a couple of years before that. So yeah. Every project has a deadline, Mikel Arteta, and as good as it is, and we've been talking about Arsenal glowingly. The deadline's coming. That big trophy has to be won. I think Mikel Arteta has done a great job in putting the foundation in. Now it's the hardest step. to finish it.
So I think your sound might have gone there. So I didn't actually hear what you just said. So I'm going to freewheel this, and we're going to talk about
That's the best. That's the best kind, Tom.
How about I unmute the mic, because lip reading is something. I have a bad cough and cold. So let me try that one.
Mark, it was the Forest fans that just chimed in saying,
that's the best question I've ever given as well. Unbelievable. Let's try that one again. It's live. There's nothing we can do about this one. Arsenal won the Cup Winners' Cup in '94 against Parma.
Didn't think you said that. Definitely not.
Okay. They reached the final of the Champions League in '06 against Barcelona, but didn't win that. Okay. So Arsenal, Janusz has just spoken about, he's just spoken about Arsenal and that big trophy. So given this, what we've been discussing and the squad of players that Arsenal now have, do you think, Tom, that Arsenal have a better chance of European success in the Champions League or the Premier League?
I think still the Premier League for me, just because they have this. If they have sort of the 3 games in 7 days, they can chop and change that and rotate it and still win, grind out those tricky games on the road. I just think with the Champions League at the moment, I think give this team a season really to bed in. I think Arteta, though the pressure's definitely on to win the Premier League this season, and Liverpool has started so well, I think the Champions League this season might be a step too far just for where this team is in its journey. However, having said that, we have seen stranger things happen. I just feel that this season there's so much clamour and so much mention of the Premier League that has to be priority A, and whatever else happens is a bonus. So I'd say it's unlikely, but they do have a squad now which is absolutely essential to challenge on multiple fronts, challenge for multiple trophies. That's exactly what they needed to develop, and that's what they've done. And it's interesting today. Today was the homecoming of Edu at Nottingham Arsenal against Forest, the guy who left Arsenal for Forest last season, and Arsenal haven't missed a beat without him. In fact, they've probably got better in terms of their recruitment, the way they ruthlessly went for Eze, taking him under the noses of Tottenham. They moved quickly. They got all of their number 1 targets, 8 new players in the summer. That's the team now. That's a squad which is targeting multiple trophies. But for me, I think the Premier League is probably the most likely of the whole bunch. In terms of those two, if you're looking at Champions League or Premier League, it's probably the league which they would really covet this season.
Are Arsenal serious Champions League contenders?
Absolutely. Why wouldn't they be? I think the new version of Champions League is just as forgiving as the previous version, right? I mean, we've seen that from Paris Saint-Germain last season when they finished 15th in the league play. Why should we doubt Arsenal? I mean, destroyed PSV, more importantly, destroyed Real Madrid in both games last season, right? And obviously lost to the eventual winner in PSG. So I just think that with the strength in depth, the quality that they have, the experience that they've gained as well, why wouldn't I think that they're more capable of doing that? So, in fact, if I had to guess, I'd still think that it may be opposite to Tom, that it is the Champions League that they have better chances. Premier League, obviously everybody got so much stronger this season. So I still think it's, Liverpool and Arsenal, but you can lose points just about anywhere. That's always the case in the Premier League. But, given what Chelsea may or may not do, Manchester City, maybe they're going to start waking up, but they can take points away from you. We can find that out pretty soon, right? Because Arsenal are playing Manchester City, so they are definitely capable. I think if you look at what Edu started and Kroenke and his commitment right now, they've put Arsenal in position to win a big trophy this year, either Premier League or the Champions League.
Okay, that's 15 minutes on Arsenal, 14 and a half minutes that you've actually heard. Let's talk about Nottingham Forest. Quite the dichotomy between Nuno and Ange Postecoglou. Nuno's side last season on the whole, Tom, were like, okay, you take the ball. We don't need it. We can do our damage without the ball, and then when we get it back in transition. So they now have Ange Postecoglou, who a lot of the time liked his centre-backs to defend on the halfway line because he knew he had the pace of Van de Ven to be able to get back. How long could this take Ange Postecoglou to put his stamp on a side that's already pretty ingrained in Nuno's way?
It's a great question. And pre-match, he was saying on the broadcast, they were asking him, how, do you stick to your style of play and then kind of force the players to play that, or do you look at the players and then tweak things accordingly? And he basically said the players can play that I want to play. But he did say it's been too soon to try and implement that this week, which I thought was a bit strange because ultimately Arsenal away is pretty much a free hit because Arsenal are going to be favourites. Anything Nottingham Forest get out of that really is a bonus. I would have liked to seen a bit more of the Ange in it today. We saw the high line, which got unpicked basically for the second goal. But apart from that, the intensity wasn't there. It's interesting that he took Chris Wood off when he did, sort of around the hour mark. That's the earliest he's been taken off in the past 2 seasons now under Forest. You can see little changes happening there. Perhaps, they spent nearly £200 million in the summer on new players as well. They had 7 new players on the bench. So not only is this a team trying to develop, they're trying to develop in terms of the players they bought over the summer, try and mould a new squad. They're also now trying to change the play. So there's a lot for Ange to do here. And the games coming up, they're not overly forgiving. You've got sort of Swansea away, then you've got Burnley away, then you've got the Europa League to juggle in as well, something which he knows how to win, of course. But look, there's a lot for him to do here. And I think they could have a little bit of a sticky start before we see them playing exactly how he wants them to play, but also feeling comfortable again. At the moment, I think they're kind of stuck between 2 stools.
We've already spoken, Janusz, about Zubimendi's first goal. It was a stunner. His third one was a header. I'm glad Tom just spoke about the second goal there because I want to talk about that in a little bit more in depth. Because, yeah, they've got a high line, but there's zero pressure on the ball whatsoever. There wasn't that work rate that you would expect to try and get in the face of Arsenal. Yes, they've had issues because Murillo went off after 37 minutes. They had to bring on Savona. They had to swap Williams to the other side as well. But it's one ball over the top, under no duress whatsoever, with Savona out of the way. It was onside. That's not going to work. That's not good in many, many facets of defending from a Nottingham Forest perspective. What can he learn from that, Ange Postecoglou, to make sure it's not as simple as one ball over the top can beat a defence that doesn't have someone that has the pace of Van de Ven that Spurs and Postecoglou had?
Well, I mean, you start with pressure on the ball, but I think that's isolated incident today because, there was no high line. The high line was in the middle of the penalty area for Nottingham Forest, right? They couldn't get out of their own half. And obviously we didn't expect a higher line or something special from Postecoglou in that first game away to Arsenal of all places. So look, as far as the high line, I think he'll try that. I don't know if this is a team that you would think of Postecoglou to do it, right? Because if you couldn't do it with pace, and he's had that at Spurs, right? If you look at Porro, Van de Ven, Romero, he had Udogi there and Spence, right? And they were vulnerable, as we've seen. How are you going to do it with Milenkovic and Murillo, right? They're not the speedsters or Morato, who played, emergency left back, even though we know he's a center back. So I think that in itself, it's an issue. And it's just a question of, are we going to see balance from that team? I saw a statistic there, Tom, you probably know that, but actually this season, in terms of possession, Forest were pretty good, right? They were the team that were playing on the front foot rather than just looking to counter. So, in essence, the way they started, maybe Nuno has set the ground for Ange to some degree, but I just think this is going to be always difficult. Last season was a special season. The relationship between Nuno and Marinakis broke because I think I think the owner probably got pissed off that they lost a chance to play in the Champions League. This was their one chance and one chance only. I think you're going to see Forest back to, middle of the table, if not fighting relegation, Ange or not, because I'm looking at this team and I just think that, last season they massively overachieved. Fair play to them. And this is going to be difficult. And I just don't know if Ange is going to be capable of doing that. Just look at the ownership, right? 8 years and 8 managers. I wish him luck, but I just don't see a team for what Ange wants to do here.
Tom, we've seen an owner, Marinakis, that spent a lot of money, and when he's not happy, he makes changes. If what Janusz says actually happens, and they don't even match what Nuno did, but they end up this mid-table side, how much time's Ange got then?
Well, he made that joke, didn't he, in his opening press conference that he might have to win a trophy in his first season. I don't see this going horrendously wrong anytime soon in terms of anything drastic. You're not going to, end up with an Eric Ten Hag situation here. But look, they're two fiery characters. Postecoglou is going to fight fire with fire. He's already said that he loves working with an owner with the passion of someone like Marinakis. So it's one thing saying it, it's another thing dealing with it. And then there's Edu as well, who clearly didn't get on very well with Nuno Espirito Santo either. By all reports, it sounds like they clashed, and Nuno was pushing for a player like Adama Traore over the summer to replace Elanga, and he was given someone else. So there's clearly a disconnect there. So look, it's going to take a bit of adjusting. But look, in 2 seasons, Postecoglou dealt with a pretty tricky man in Daniel Levy, someone who is quite a divisive figure, but ultimately he produced the Europa League win, but at the expense of finishing 17th in the league. So success this season, I imagine, would be finishing in the top half and then making a Europa League run with a view to then pushing on next season for Forest. Look, it's always going to be the difficult second season. It's clear that he has a good camaraderie with the owner as things stand, but it is going to be tough in these opening exchanges. The players are going to have to play a different sort of way. And as Janusz said, look, there were times today, the high line is absolutely spot on. Like, they were playing with 8 players in their box for the first half. I kept on counting them with my 14-month-old twins, trying to get them to count to 10 by looking at Nottingham Forest penalty box, basically. There's so many players in there that it was just ridiculous. So they were under pressure today. There was no creativity. Morgan Gibbs-White was very quiet, and he's a brilliant player. Hudson-Odoi, the same. Wood, I don't know if he's going to suit the system at all with the pressing he requires. It's going to be interesting, but I think it's going to be a bit of a roller coaster in these early stages.
I love that line from you. As things stand, he's got a good relationship with the owner. He's been there less than a week. Maybe let's circle back next week and see how that is. So there you go, 2 from Zubimendi and 1 from Gyökeres at the start of the second half. It was 3 and easy for Arsenal. More questions than answers for Forest. But as Tom says, he thinks Arsenal have got a better chance of winning the Premier League than the Champions League. Janusz thinks it's the other way around. Arsenal 3, Forest 0. Bye for now.